The Whispering Woods. In a small town surrounded by dense, dark woods, there was an unspoken rule: never go into the Whispering Woods after dark. Legend had it that the trees were alive, whispering secrets to those brave enough to enter, and many who ventured in at night never returned. One crisp autumn evening, a group of friends, Jack, Sarah, and Tom, decided to test their courage. Ignoring the warnings, they set out just as the sun dipped below the horizon, armed with flashlights and bravado. As they stepped into the woods, the air grew colder, and the branches seemed to close in around them. The deeper they went, the more pronounced the whispers became, soft, unintelligible murmurs that sent shivers down their spines. "Do you hear that?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Probably just the wind," Jack replied, though he felt an uneasy knot forming in his stomach. Tom, ever the thrill-seeker, urged them onward. "Come on, let's go deeper. It'll be fun." After what felt like hours, they reached a clearing illuminated by the faint light of the moon. In the center stood an ancient, gnarled tree with twisted roots. Intrigued, they gathered around it, and the whispers grew louder, forming words that echoed in their minds: "Leave before it's too late." Jack laughed nervously. "This is just a prank. Someone's messing with us." But deep down, he felt the weight of the warning pressing on his chest. Suddenly, Tom pointed to a small wooden box nestled at the tree's base. "Look," he exclaimed. "What do you think is inside?" Against their better judgment, they opened the box. Inside lay an old, weathered journal filled with sketches of the woods and strange symbols. As they flipped through its pages, they found a chilling entry dated decades ago. "The woods are alive. They demand a sacrifice. Do not enter at night." Before they could process the ominous warning, the ground beneath them trembled. The whispers transformed into frantic screams, echoing through the trees. Panic surged, and they decided it was time to leave. As they sprinted back, the forest seemed to warp around them. The path they had taken vanished, replaced by a labyrinth of twisted branches and shadows. The whispers grew more insistent, urging them to turn back, to stay. "Keep moving," Jack shouted, fear propelling him forward. But as they ran, they realized they were no longer together. Sarah was missing. "Sarah!" Tom called, his voice cracking. "Stay together!" Jack yelled, but the darkness closed in around them, suffocating. Moments later, Jack and Tom stumbled into a clearing, breathless and terrified. "We need to find her," Tom insisted, panic etched on his face. "Where could she be?" Jack murmured, dread pooling in his stomach. Suddenly, they heard a faint whisper, a voice calling from deeper in the woods. "Help me!" It was Sarah's voice, trembling and weak. Without thinking, Tom ran towards the sound. Jack hesitated, fear gripping him. "Tom, wait," he shouted, but Tom was already lost in the shadows. Desperate, Jack followed, the whispers growing louder, more chaotic. He found Tom standing frozen in front of a massive tree, its bark twisting into grotesque faces. At its base lay Sarah, her eyes wide with terror. "Get away from her!" Jack shouted, rushing to pull her away. But as he reached out, the ground shook violently, and roots shot up, grabbing his legs, pulling him toward the tree. "Jack!" Sarah screamed, her voice piercing through the chaos. Tom, shaking with fear, tried to help, but the roots wrapped around his wrists, binding him. "We have to go," he shouted, his face pale. In a final act of desperation, Jack yanked free from the root's grip and reached for Sarah. He felt a cold hand brush against his own, pulling him back. Leave. Sarah cried, tears streaming down her face. It. Sarah cried, tears streaming down her face. It's too late for us. With all his strength, Jack pulled away, breaking free just as the whispers reached a deafening crescendo. He turned and ran, not daring to look back. He burst through the edge of the woods and collapsed on the grass, gasping for breath. But as he looked back, the trees stood silent, the whispers fading into the night. Jack never spoke of that night again. He moved away from the town, leaving the whispering woods behind. But sometimes, late at night, he could still hear the whispers, echoing in his mind, reminding him of the friends he lost, forever trapped within the twisted trees.